Your Honor, I present Exhibit A, my itemized invoice for raising my niece after her mother's untimely death, Aunt Catherine announced, sliding a manila folder across the courtroom with the confidence of someone who'd never lost an argument at Thanksgiving dinner. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the $40,000 bill that listed everything from emotional labor to birthday cake expenses, then looked up with an expression I'd never seen in 3 years of law school. Mrs. Harrison, he said slowly, before we proceed, perhaps you could explain why this invoice doesn't mention the $280,000 in Social Security survivor benefits you collected in Miss Davis's name? The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. I sat in the second row, my hands gripping the wooden bench so tight my knuckles hurt. 3 hours ago, I thought I was coming to court to watch my Aunt Catherine get what she deserved for taking me to court over some made-up debt. Now I was watching my whole childhood crumble into pieces in front of strangers. Catherine's face went from confident to confused to something that looked like fear. Her lawyer, a thin white man in an expensive suit, whispered something in her ear. She shook her head and stood up straighter. Your Honor, I don't know what you're talking about. I never received any. Mrs. Harrison, Judge Thompson interrupted, his deep voice filling the small family courtroom. I have documentation here from the Social Security Administration showing that you were the representative payee for Miss Simone Davis from age 7 to 18. That's 11 years of monthly payments totaling $280,384.67. My stomach dropped. I felt like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Social Security money? In my name? I turned to look at my best friend Tiffany, who was sitting next to me. Her eyes were wide and she grabbed my hand. Catherine sat down hard in her chair. I used that money to take care of her. Food, clothes, housing. That's what it was for. According to this invoice you submitted, the judge said, holding up Catherine's papers, you're claiming Miss Davis owes you an additional $40,000 for those same expenses. Are you saying you charged her twice? The silence in the courtroom was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Everything I thought I knew about my life was falling apart. Catherine had been collecting money for me? All those years she told me I should be grateful she took me in after Mama died? All those times she reminded me how much I cost her? Furthermore, Judge Thompson continued, I'm looking at bank records that show regular deposits to your personal checking account, not a separate account for Miss Davis's benefit. Can you explain that? Catherine's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client was not aware she needed to maintain a separate account. She used the funds for the child's benefit. A child's benefit that she's now billing the child for? The judge's eyebrows went up. Mr. Chin, I've been on this bench for 15 years. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen someone try to charge a child for expenses already covered by government benefits specifically designated for that child's care. I felt sick. Really sick. Like I might throw up right there in the courtroom. Tiffany squeezed my hand tighter. Catherine finally looked back at me for the first time since court started. The look on her face wasn't the Catherine I knew. The Catherine I knew was tough but fair. She made sure I did my homework. She came to my high school graduation. She helped me fill out college applications. This Catherine looked like a stranger caught stealing. Your Honor, Catherine said, her voice smaller now, I raised that girl for 11 years. I sacrificed for her. I gave up my freedom, my social life. I never married because I was taking care of her. That money from the government wasn't enough to cover everything. Mrs. Harrison, according to these records, you received approximately $2,100 per month in survivor benefits. That's $25,200 per year, tax-free, specifically for Miss Davis's care. Additionally, I see here that Miss Davis qualified for free school lunches, Medicaid, and other assistance programs. What exactly did this money not cover? Catherine looked around the courtroom like she was looking for help that wasn't coming. It wasn't just about money. It was about time, about emotional support, about being there when she was sick, helping with homework, dealing with teenage problems. You can't put a price on that. You're absolutely right, Judge Thompson said. You can't put a price on that. Which is why it's particularly concerning that you tried to. For $40,000. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. I kept thinking about all those times Catherine made me feel guilty. Do you know how much your school supplies cost? Do you know how much I spend on groceries every month? Do you know what I could be doing with my life if I didn't have to take care of you? But she was getting money for taking care of me. The whole time. Miss Davis, the judge said, looking directly at me for the first time. Are you aware that you were entitled to those survivor benefits? I stood up shakily. No, Your Honor. I had no idea. Were you ever given access to this money or told about it? No, sir. I worked part-time jobs all through high school to help with expenses. I took out student loans for college. Aunt Catherine always said money was tight and I needed to do my part. The judge wrote something down. Mrs. Harrison, federal law requires that representative payees maintain detailed records of how benefit funds are spent and provide annual reports to the Social Security Administration. Do you have those records? Catherine's lawyer whispered to her again. She shook her head. I didn't know about any reports. So you have no documentation showing how $280,000 in federal benefits designated for your niece's care was actually spent on your niece's care? I spent it on her. I took care of her. And now you want her to pay you an additional $40,000 for that care? Catherine didn't answer. She just stared at the table in front of her. Judge Thompson set down his papers. Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be very clear with you. What you've presented to this court today appears to be an attempt to defraud your niece. You collected nearly $300,000 in government benefits specifically designated for her care, and now you're trying to bill her for expenses that were already covered by those benefits. This is not a civil matter. This is potentially criminal. The words, potentially criminal, hit me like a truck. Catherine could go to jail? Catherine, who made me chicken soup when I was sick. Who drove me to track practice every day junior year. Who cried at my high school graduation. Your Honor, I heard myself saying, standing up again. Can I speak? Everyone in the courtroom turned to look at me. Judge Thompson nodded. You may, Miss Davis. I looked at Catherine, then at the judge. I just want to understand what happened to the money. I don't want anyone to go to jail. I just want to know the truth. Judge Thompson's expression softened a little. Miss Davis, that's exactly what we're going to find out. I'm ordering a full audit of all funds received and spent. I'm also dismissing Mrs. Harrison's claim against you immediately. You owe her nothing. In fact, it appears she may owe you quite a lot. Catherine's head dropped into her hands. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked small and scared. Court is adjourned for today, Judge Thompson said. Mrs. Harrison, I strongly suggest you consult with your attorney about your potential legal exposure here. And I suggest you have a very serious conversation with your niece about what happened to her money. As people started filing out of the courtroom, I just sat there. Tiffany put her arm around me. Simone, she whispered, are you okay? I wasn't okay. I wasn't even close to okay. Everything I thought I knew about my life was wrong. And I had no idea what came next. The courthouse parking lot was almost empty by the time I finally walked outside. The late afternoon sun felt too bright, like it was mocking me. Everything looked the same as it had this morning, but nothing felt the same. I kept thinking about that number, $280,000. That was more money than I'd ever imagined having. Money that was supposed to be for me. Money that could have paid for college without loans. Money that could have changed everything. Simone, wait up. I turned around to see Catherine hurrying after me, her heels clicking on the concrete. She looked older than she had this morning. Older and tired and desperate. Don't, I said, putting my hand up. Just don't. Baby, please. Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like? I turned around to face her fully. What does it look like, Catherine? Because what it looks like to me is that you've been lying to me my entire life. I never lied to you. I didn't tell you everything. You didn't tell me everything? My voice was getting louder and people in the parking lot were starting to stare. You took money that was supposed to be for me and then tried to bill me for taking care of me. How is that not lying? Catherine looked around nervously. Can we not do this here? Can we go somewhere and talk? Just us. Tiffany stepped up beside me. I don't think that's a good idea. This is family business, Tiffany. It doesn't concern you. Simone is my family too, Tiffany said firmly. And from what I just heard in there, you're not exactly family of the year material. Catherine's face hardened. I raised that girl when no one else would. Her daddy was long gone, her mama was dead, and the rest of the family scattered to the wind. I could have put her in foster care, but I didn't. I stepped up. You stepped up? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You stepped up with my money. Money I never knew existed. Money you never told me about. That money was for your care, and that's what I used it for. Then why did you sue me for $40,000? Catherine opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in my life, I had asked her a question she couldn't answer. The money wasn't enough, she said finally. Do you know what it costs to raise a child? Really? Not just food and clothes, but everything. The time off work when you were sick. The gas money driving you all over town for activities. The worry, the stress, the responsibility. That government money didn't cover any of that. It wasn't supposed to cover your worry, Catherine. It was supposed to cover food and housing and clothes and school supplies. All the things you made me feel guilty for needing. I never made you feel guilty. Are you serious right now? I stared at her. Catherine, you reminded me every single day how much I cost you. When I wanted new shoes for school, you'd sigh and say, "Money doesn't grow on trees, Simone." When I wanted to join drama club and needed money for costumes, you said, "We can't afford extras." When I wanted to go to homecoming, you said, "Do you know how much dresses cost?" You made me get a job at 15 because you said we needed the extra money. We did need extra money. That government money wasn't enough. $2,100 a month wasn't enough? Catherine, that's more than minimum wage. That's more than most people make. Catherine's face was getting red. You don't understand. You were just a kid. You don't know how expensive it is to really take care of someone. You're right. I was just a kid. A kid whose mama died and whose family took her in. A kid who should have been told that her government was helping to pay for her care. A kid who should have been given access to money that was legally hers. A kid who worked part-time jobs all through high school because she thought her family was struggling financially. We were struggling. With $25,000 a year in extra income? Catherine, that's more than some families live on total. Tiffany touched my arm. Simone, maybe we should go. You don't need to do this here. She was right. I was shaking and my voice was getting louder. But I had so many questions and Catherine was standing right there. When would I get another chance? Just tell me one thing, I said. Did you ever plan to tell me about the money? Catherine looked down at her shoes. I thought about it. When I turned 18. When I graduated college. When I got married. When? I don't know. Eventually. You thought about eventually telling me that you'd collected $280,000 in my name. It wasn't in your name. It was for your care. It was for my care, but you put it in your account. You used it however you wanted. And you never told me it existed. Catherine looked up at me and for a second I saw something in her eyes that looked like guilt. Simone, I did the best I could. I was 28 years old when your mama died. I didn't know how to raise a kid. I was scared and overwhelmed and just trying to figure it out day by day. You were 28. I was 7. I was scared too. I was a little girl who had just lost her mama, and I needed someone to take care of me. And you did. You did take care of me and I'm grateful for that. But you also lied to me. For 15 years. I didn't lie. You just what? Forgot to mention the $280,000? Accidentally never told me about the monthly checks? Somehow missed the fact that I was entitled to that money. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I was young and stupid and scared. I didn't know what I was doing. The social worker explained about the money and I signed some papers and it started coming. I put it in my account because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. And I used it for you. For the house payment and groceries and utilities and your clothes and school supplies. And for yourself too. I lived in the same house. I ate the same food. I paid the same utilities. But I didn't know about the money. You made me think we were poor. You made me feel guilty for costing you money. You made me get a job and take out student loans and worry about money constantly. I wanted you to learn responsibility. I wanted you to understand the value of money. By lying to me about it? Catherine wiped her eyes. I never meant for it to go this far. The lawyer said I could sue you for the money I spent raising you and I thought maybe you could pay me back some of what it cost. With what money? I'm a broke college student. You're about to graduate law school. You'll have a good job. I stared at her. You were going to make me pay you back with my future earnings for raising me with money that was already designated for raising me? When I said it out loud like that, it sounded even worse than it had in the courtroom. Catherine didn't answer. She just stood there crying in the courthouse parking lot. I need to go, I said. I need to think. Simone, please, don't hate me. I'm still your family. I'm still the one who raised you. I looked at her for a long minute. I don't hate you, Catherine. But I don't trust you anymore either. And I don't know how to fix that. I turned and walked toward Tiffany's car. Behind me I heard Catherine calling my name, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. If I looked at her again I might start crying and I wasn't ready to cry yet. I was still too angry. As we drove away I watched Catherine in the side mirror. She was standing alone in the parking lot, looking lost and small. Part of me wanted to tell Tiffany to turn around. But the bigger part of me needed to get as far away as possible. Where do you want to go? Tiffany asked quietly. I don't know, I said. Somewhere that makes sense. Because nothing in my life makes sense anymore. Tiffany drove us to the diner on 5th Street where we'd spent countless hours studying for exams and talking about our dreams. It felt like the only place in the world that still felt normal. We slid into our usual booth in the back corner, and I stared out the window at traffic moving by like nothing had changed. You want to talk about it? Tiffany asked, sliding a menu across the table even though we both knew what we were going to order. I don't even know where to start. I picked up the menu just to have something to do with my hands. This morning I thought I was going to court to watch my aunt lose a stupid lawsuit. Now I find out she's been collecting money for me my whole life and I never knew about it. The waitress came over, Sandra, who'd been working here since we were freshmen. The usual, ladies? 2 coffee and pie, please, Tiffany said. Make mine chocolate cream. She needs the comfort food. Sandra looked at me more closely. You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I said. After Sandra walked away, Tiffany leaned across the table. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I don't even know what my options are. Can I get the money back? Is Catherine in real trouble? Will this affect my bar exam? I'm supposed to graduate in 2 months, and now I don't know if I can even think straight enough to study. First things first, Tiffany said. Let's figure out what actually happened. So the government was sending Catherine money for your care every month. Apparently. $2,100 a month from when I was 7 until I turned 18. I did the math in my head. That's $277,200. The judge said it was a little more than that because of cost of living increases over the years. And you had no idea? None. I remember when Mama died, there were a lot of meetings with social workers and lawyers. But I was 7. Nobody explained anything to me. Catherine just told me I was going to live with her now, and that was that. Sandra brought our coffee and pie. The smell of chocolate should have been comforting, but my stomach was still in knots. Think about it though, Tiffany said carefully. Maybe Catherine really did use all that money for your care. Housing costs, food, clothes, medical expenses. Maybe there really wasn't anything left over. I took a sip of coffee and thought about it. Even if that's true, why didn't she tell me? Why make me feel guilty about money if there was money specifically designated for taking care of me? Maybe she was trying to teach you responsibility? By lying to me for 15 years? By making me work part-time jobs all through high school? By making me take out student loans when there might have been money available for college? Tiffany winced. Yeah, when you put it like that, it sounds pretty bad. I pushed my pie around on the plate. I keep thinking about all the time she made me feel bad about needing things. New school clothes, money for field trips, gas money to drive to my job. She always acted like it was such a hardship. Maybe it was a hardship for her, even with the government money. Then why not just tell me the truth? Why not say, Simone, the government helps with some of your expenses, but we still need to be careful with money? Why make me think we were barely scraping by? I don't know. Fear maybe? Shame? Some people aren't good with money, period. I thought about that. Catherine had never been good with money. Even before I came to live with her, she was always broke. Always asking Grandma Rosie for loans. Always behind on her bills. Oh no, I said suddenly. What? What if she spent it on other things? What if she used my money to pay her bills or buy things for herself? Tiffany's eyes got wide. Would she do that? I don't know. I thought I knew her, but apparently I don't know anything. I put my head in my hands. Tiffany, what if she stole from me? What if that money was supposed to help me go to college, and instead she spent it on herself? Don't think like that. Not yet. You don't know what happened to the money. The judge ordered an audit. I guess we'll find out. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The diner was starting to fill up with the dinner crowd, families with kids, couples on dates, old men drinking coffee and reading newspapers. Normal people living normal lives. People who probably knew how much money they had and where it came from. Can I ask you something? Tiffany said finally. Sure. Are you more upset about the money or about the lying? I thought about that. The lying. Definitely the lying. I mean, the money would have been nice to know about. It would have changed a lot of things. But the lying, that changes everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Catherine. How so? She's the only family I really have. After Mama died, it was just me and Catherine. She's the one who taught me how to drive, helped me with homework, came to my school plays. She's the one who held me when I cried about boys and celebrated when I got into law school. But the whole time she was keeping this huge secret from me. Maybe she was trying to protect you. From what? From knowing that I was entitled to financial support? From understanding that my care wasn't just a burden on her? From feeling secure about money instead of constantly worried about it? Tiffany didn't have an answer for that. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Catherine. "Simone, please call me. We need to talk. I love you." I showed the text to Tiffany. "Are you going to call her?" "Not today. I can't. I'm too angry and confused. I need time to think." "What about tomorrow? Or this weekend?" "I don't know. I don't know when I'll be ready to talk to her." "You can't avoid her forever. You guys are family." "Are we though?" I'm starting to wonder what family even means. Does family lie to each other for 15 years? Does family sue each other for money? Does family make each other feel guilty for existing? Tiffany reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Family is complicated, Simone. People mess up. They make bad decisions. But that doesn't erase all the good things Catherine did for you. Doesn't it though? How do I know what was real and what was manipulation? When she helped me with homework, was she being supportive, or was she making sure I stayed grateful to her? When she came to my school events, was she proud of me, or was she making sure everyone knew what a good guardian she was?" "You're overthinking this." "Am I? Because right now I feel like my entire childhood was a lie." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Miss Davis? This is Maria Santos. I'm a social worker with the county. Judge Thompson asked me to reach out to you about today's hearing." My stomach dropped. "Okay. I know this must be overwhelming for you. I was hoping we could meet tomorrow to discuss your options and help you understand what happens next." "What kind of options?" "Well, there are several things we need to look into. The audit Judge Thompson ordered is just the beginning. If we find that funds were misused, there may be ways to recover some of that money. There are also resources available to help you understand your rights as a former recipient of survivor benefits." "I don't understand. What rights?" "Miss Davis, you were entitled to those benefits until age 18, or 22 if you were in college full-time. Some of that money may have been intended for educational expenses. If those funds weren't used appropriately, you may be entitled to compensation." I felt dizzy. "How much compensation?" "That depends on what the audit finds. But potentially quite a lot." After I hung up, Tiffany and I just looked at each other. "This is getting bigger, isn't it?" I said. "Yeah," she said. "I think it is." Outside, the sun was setting and the diner was getting crowded. But I felt more alone than I had since the day Mama died. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Catherine's face in the courtroom when the judge mentioned the Social Security money. The shock, then the fear, then something that looked like guilt. I kept replaying every conversation we'd ever had about money, looking for clues I'd missed. At 6 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and called the one person I knew would be awake, Grandma Rosie. "Child, what are you doing calling me this early?" Grandma's voice was warm and familiar, like home. "Grandma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. When have I ever lied to you? Did you know about the Social Security money?" The silence on the other end of the phone was so long I thought the call had dropped. "Grandma? I'm here, baby. Where are you? Can you come over?" "I'm on my way." Grandma Rosie lived in the same house where Mama grew up, a small blue house with a front porch and a garden full of tomatoes and collard greens. She was waiting for me on the porch swing when I pulled up, still in her house robe but with her hair done and lipstick on. Even at 73, Grandma Rosie didn't let anyone see her without her face on. "Come here, baby," she said, opening her arms. I fell into them like I was 7 years old again. "Grandma, did you know?" She held me tighter. "Let's go inside and talk." Her kitchen smelled like coffee and bacon, and the morning sun came through the yellow curtains in a way that made everything look golden. Grandma poured me coffee in the same mug I'd been using since I was tall enough to reach the counter. "Now," she said, settling into her chair across from me, "tell me what happened yesterday." I told her everything. The courtroom, the invoice, the judge's questions, Catherine's face when she realized she was caught. When I finished, Grandma shook her head slowly. "That child," she said. "I tried to warn her this would catch up with her." "So you did know?" "I knew some of it. I knew there was government money for your care. I didn't know how much, and I didn't know Catherine never told you about it." "Why didn't you tell me?" Grandma sighed. "Because it wasn't my place, baby. Catherine was your guardian. The money was going to her for your care. I figured it was her business how she handled it." "But you suspected something was wrong?" "I suspected Catherine was in over her head. She never was good with money, you know that. Even as a child, she'd spend her allowance the day she got it and then come crying to me when she wanted something else." I thought about that. It was true. Catherine had always been impulsive about money. New clothes when the credit card was maxed out. Expensive dinners when the electric bill was overdue. Did she ever ask you for money after I came to live with her? Grandma looked uncomfortable. A few times. For what? She said the money from the government wasn't enough. Said raising a child was more expensive than she'd realized. But she was getting over $2,000 a month. I know that now. I didn't know the exact amount then. I felt sick all over again. Grandma, how much money did you give her over the years? Simone, that's not important now. It is to me. Please. Grandma got up and walked to the window. Maybe 15, 20,000 over the years. Sometimes a few hundred for emergencies. Sometimes more for big things like when you needed a car for your senior year. A car that I worked all summer to help pay for. You worked all summer? Catherine said we couldn't afford it otherwise. I worked at the grocery store 40 hours a week and gave her half my paycheck to help with the car payment. Grandma turned around and her face was angry. She made you work to pay for your own car while she was getting government money for your care? I didn't know about the government money. I thought we were broke. Oh baby. Grandma came back to the table and took my hands. I had no idea. Catherine told me you wanted to work, that you were trying to learn responsibility. I did want to learn responsibility. But I also thought I had to work because we needed the money. We sat there for a minute, both of us trying to process what this meant. Grandma, there's something else. The social worker said I might be entitled to compensation if the money was misused. What if Catherine goes to jail? Catherine's not going to jail. How do you know? Because you're not going to let that happen. I stared at her. What do you mean? I mean you're a good girl with a good heart, and you're not going to destroy your aunt over money. She lied to me for 15 years. Yes, she did. And that was wrong. But sending her to prison isn't going to fix anything. It might make me feel better. Grandma gave me a look. No, it won't. Revenge never makes anyone feel better, baby. It just makes you bitter. So what am I supposed to do? Just forgive her and pretend this never happened. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying you need to decide what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be the kind of person who destroys family over mistakes? Or do you want to be the kind of person who finds a way to heal? This wasn't a mistake, Grandma. This was 15 years of lies. And Catherine will have to live with that for the rest of her life. The question is whether you're going to let it destroy both of you. My phone rang. It was Tiffany. Simone, where are you? You missed your civil procedure class. I looked at the clock. It was almost noon. I'm at Grandma's. I'll be back later. Are you okay? I don't know. After I hung up, Grandma looked at me seriously. Baby, you can't let this mess up your schooling. You're 2 months away from graduating law school. Don't let Catherine's mistakes become your mistakes. How am I supposed to concentrate on school when my whole life is falling apart? The same way your mama would have. By putting one foot in front of the other and doing what needs to be done. Don't, I said. Don't bring mama into this. Your mama is already in this. She's the reason you got those benefits in the first place. She worked and paid into Social Security so that if something happened to her, you'd be taken care of. That money was her gift to you even after she was gone. That hit me harder than anything else had. I started crying for the first time since the courtroom. She would have made sure I knew about the money, I said through my tears. Yes, she would have. And she would have made sure it was used right. But your mama's not here and Catherine did the best she could. Her best included lying to me and then suing me. Her best included raising you when no one else could. It included making sure you stayed in school and out of trouble. It included being there when you were sick and celebrating when you succeeded. Don't let her mistakes erase all the good she did. I wiped my eyes. I don't know how to forgive this, Grandma. You don't have to forgive it today. But you need to decide what you want your life to look like going forward. Do you want a life full of anger and family feuds? Or do you want a life where you find a way to heal and move on? I want the money back. That's fair. And you should get it back if it was misused. But wanting the money back is different from wanting revenge. Is it though? Yes, baby. It is. One is about justice. The other is about anger. And anger will eat you alive if you let it. We sat on the porch for another hour, not talking, just watching the neighborhood come alive around us. Kids walking home from school, neighbors working in their yards, normal people living normal lives. Finally, Grandma spoke. You know what you need to do? What? You need to meet with that social worker. You need to find out exactly what happened to your money. And then you need to decide whether you want to be someone who destroys family or someone who finds a way to heal. What if Catherine really did steal from me? Then you deal with that when you know for sure. But until then, don't let anger make decisions for you. As I drove back to school, I thought about what Grandma had said. About being the kind of person who heals instead of destroys. About not letting Catherine's mistakes become my mistakes. But I also thought about 15 years of lies. About working jobs I didn't need to work. About student loans I didn't need to take. About feeling guilty for costing Catherine money when she was being paid to take care of me. And I wasn't sure forgiveness was possible. At least not yet. Meeting with Maria Santos felt like stepping into another world. Her office was in the County Social Services building, a gray concrete building that smelled like disinfectant and desperation. The walls were covered with posters about services and resources, and the waiting room was full of tired-looking people with complicated problems. Miss Davis? Maria appeared at the door of the waiting room. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Come on back. Her office was small but comfortable, with pictures of children on the walls and a desk covered with case files. She offered me coffee, which I accepted gratefully. Before we start, she said, settling behind her desk, I want you to know that everything we discuss today is confidential. You're under no obligation to pursue any particular course of action. I'm here to help you understand your options. Okay. First, let's talk about what happened yesterday. Judge Thompson ordered an audit of your aunt's financial records related to the survivor benefits she received on your behalf. That audit will be conducted by our office in cooperation with the Social Security Administration. How long will that take? Usually 4 to 6 weeks. We'll be looking at bank records, receipts, any documentation your aunt has about how the money was spent. We'll also be reviewing her annual reports to Social Security. What annual reports? Maria looked at her notes. Representative payees are required to file annual reports with Social Security showing how benefit funds were used. They're supposed to provide receipts and documentation for major expenses. And if she didn't file those reports? That's a violation of federal law. It doesn't necessarily mean the money was misused, but it means she wasn't following the proper procedures. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. What happens if you find that money was misused? That depends on several factors. How much money, what it was used for, whether there was intent to defraud. In some cases we work out a repayment plan. In others we refer the case to federal prosecutors. Federal prosecutors? Miss Davis, if your aunt misused federal benefits, that's a federal crime. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's important that you understand the potential consequences. I thought about Catherine, probably sitting at home right now, worried sick about what was going to happen to her. Despite everything, I didn't want her to go to prison. What if I don't want to press charges? It's not entirely up to you. If we find evidence of fraud, we're obligated to report it. But your cooperation or lack thereof would certainly be taken into account by prosecutors. Maria pulled out a thick folder. Now let's talk about your specific situation. According to our records, you started receiving survivor benefits in March 2006, when you were 7 years old. Your mother had paid into Social Security for 12 years before her death. How much was she getting? Initially, $1,847 per month. That amount increased over time with cost of living adjustments. By the time you turned 18 in 2017, the monthly payment was $2,247. I did quick math in my head. So over 11 years, that's $282,344 in total benefits. The number hit me like a physical blow. Nearly $300,000. Money that was supposed to be for my care, money I never knew existed. What was I entitled to with that money? Anything related to your care and support. Housing, food, clothing, medical expenses, educational expenses, transportation. The money was meant to ensure you had the same standard of living you would have had if your mother had lived. Educational expenses? Yes. Survivor benefits continue until age 18, or until age 19 if the recipient is still in high school. There's also a provision for educational benefits if the recipient is in college full-time. My heart started racing. I was in college full-time. Maria checked her notes. Yes, you started college in the fall of 2017, just a few months after your 18th birthday. Did you know you might have been eligible for continued benefits? No. Catherine never mentioned it. Did she help you apply for financial aid for college? She helped me fill out the FAFSA, but that's about it. I took out student loans for everything else. Maria wrote something down. Miss Davis, if you were eligible for continued survivor benefits and your aunt failed to inform you or help you apply, that's another potential issue we'll need to investigate. I felt dizzy. How much money are we talking about? Potentially, benefits could have continued through your undergraduate degree. If you'd been eligible for the maximum amount, we're looking at an additional $100,000 or more. $100,000? I couldn't breathe. I could have had my college paid for? Potentially. We'll need to research your specific case, but yes, it's possible. I put my head in my hands. Not only had Catherine collected money for my care that I never knew about, she might have also cost me additional money that could have paid for my education. There's something else, Maria said gently. We need to discuss the possibility of recovery. Recovery? If we find that benefits were misused, there are several ways to recover those funds. Your aunt could be required to repay the government directly. Or, in some cases, she could be required to pay restitution to you. How much restitution? That would depend on what the audit finds. But potentially it could be substantial. I thought about Catherine, who had never had much money even before I came to live with her. How would she ever repay $300,000? What if she can't afford to pay it back? Then we look at other options. Garnishment of wages, seizure of assets, payment plans. In extreme cases, prosecution. And if she goes to prison? She'd still owe the money. Prison doesn't eliminate the debt. I left Maria's office with more questions than answers and a folder full of forms to fill out. As I walked through the parking lot, my phone rang. It was Catherine. Simone, please. We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Baby, please. I know you're angry, but let me explain. Let me tell you my side of the story. What story, Catherine? That you collected money for my care and never told me about it? That you made me work to pay for things that money was supposed to cover? That you sued me for expenses that were already paid for by government benefits? It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Explain how you took $282,000 in my name and I never knew about it. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Can you come home? Please? Just come home and let me show you something. Show me what? The records. The receipts. Everything I saved from when you were little. Let me show you where the money went. Despite everything, I was curious. Fine. But I'm bringing Tiffany. That's fine. Just come home. As I drove toward the house where I'd grown up, I wondered if I was making a mistake. But I needed to know the truth. All of it. Even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. The house looked smaller than I remembered. It was a modest 2-story house in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but well maintained. The same yellow curtains hung in the front window, and Catherine's car was parked in the driveway next to the basketball hoop she'd installed when I was 12 and decided I wanted to be the next Diana Taurasi. Tiffany pulled up behind me. You sure about this? No. But I need to see what she wants to show me. Catherine answered the door before we even knocked. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing an old sweatshirt I recognized from high school. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Both of you. The house smelled like home vanilla candles and pine sol and whatever Catherine had been cooking for dinner. Photos of me covered every surface. School pictures, track meets, graduation photos, candid shots of us together over the years. For a moment I forgot why I was angry. Come into the kitchen, Catherine said. I have everything laid out on the table. The kitchen table was covered with file folders, receipts, and bank statements. It looked like she'd been working all night. Sit down, she said. Please. Let me show you where the money went. I sat down cautiously. Tiffany took the chair next to me. Catherine picked up the first folder. This is from 2006, the first year you came to live with me. The Social Security payments started in March. She opened the folder and spread out bank statements and receipts. Look, she said, pointing to the deposit entries. March, April, May. $1,847 every month, just like they said in court. I looked at the statements. The deposits were all there, highlighted in yellow. Now look at the expenses. She showed me grocery receipts, utility bills, mortgage payments. Groceries for 2 people, $600 a month. Utilities, $150. My mortgage payment was $1,200 a month, but after you moved in, I refinanced to get a bigger payment so I could pay off the house faster and leave it to you someday. I looked at the numbers. They added up to more than the $1,847 monthly payment. See, Catherine said. The government money wasn't enough to cover everything. I was still paying out of my own pocket. But you never told me about the government money, I said. You were 7 years old. What 7-year-old needs to know about government benefits and monthly budgets? She pulled out another folder. This is 2007. Your medical expenses that year. She showed me receipts from doctor visits, prescription medications, dental work. Remember when you broke your arm playing basketball? The emergency room bill was $3,000. Insurance covered most of it, but I still had to pay $500 out of pocket. I remembered. I'd felt so guilty about the emergency room bill that I'd cried for hours. And look at this, Catherine continued, pulling out more receipts. School supplies, clothes, birthday parties for your friends. Do you remember your 8th birthday party? You wanted to invite your whole class. The cake alone was $75. I remembered that party. It was the first birthday party I'd had since Mama died, and Catherine had gone all out to make it special. This is from 2008, she said, opening another folder. You decided you wanted to play piano. Piano lessons, $80 a month. The piano, $2,400. I put it on a payment plan, but I was still paying for it 2 years later. I never asked for a piano. You didn't have to ask. You heard Mrs. Johnson next door playing piano, and you stood by the fence listening for an hour. I knew you wanted to learn. She kept going through the folders year by year. Dance classes when I was 9. A bike when I was 10. Summer camp when I was 11. School trips, clothes, shoes, electronics. Everything a normal kid would have. This is from your junior year of high school, she said, opening a thick folder. You wanted to take SAT prep classes. $800. You wanted to visit colleges. Gas money, hotel money, food money for 6 different college visits. That's $1,200 right there. You complained about the college visits. You said they were expensive. They were expensive, but I paid for them anyway, didn't I? I looked at Tiffany, who was studying the receipts and bank statements. She looked up at me and shrugged. The numbers seemed to add up. This is from your senior year, Catherine continued. Senior pictures, graduation announcements, your class ring, prom dress, graduation party. And look at this, the car. She pulled out a car loan document. You wanted a car for your senior year. I couldn't afford to buy one outright, so I took out a loan. $15,000 for a used Honda Civic. You made me work all summer to help with the payments. Because I wanted you to understand responsibility. I wanted you to appreciate what you had. But you were getting government money for my care. And I was spending more than that on your care. Look at the numbers, Simone. Every year, I spent more on you than the government gave me. I looked at the bank statements spread across the table. The math was complicated, but it seemed like Catherine was telling the truth. Every month, the government deposited money into her account, and every month she spent more than that amount on household expenses and things for me. What about the lawsuit? I asked. If you were already spending more than the government money, why sue me for additional money? Catherine's face crumpled. Because I'm an idiot. Because my lawyer told me I could recoup some of the extra expenses, and I listened to him instead of thinking it through. Because I was mad that you never seemed grateful for everything I sacrificed for you. I was grateful. Were you? Because it never felt like it. It felt like you took everything for granted. The house, the food, the clothes, the activities, the college visits. Like you expected it all. Because I didn't know there was government money helping to pay for it. You made me think we were struggling financially. We were struggling. Look at my bank statements, Simone. Look at my credit card bills. I was using credit cards to make up the difference between what the government gave me and what it actually cost to raise you. She pulled out credit card statements. The balances were enormous. You went into debt for me? Of course I went into debt for you. You think I was going to let you go without because the government money wasn't enough? You think I was going to tell a little girl who just lost her mama that she couldn't have piano lessons or birthday parties or a car for graduation because we couldn't afford it? I stared at the credit card statements. Catherine owed tens of thousands of dollars. Why didn't you tell me? What good would it have done? What 7-year-old needs to know that her guardian is going into debt to raise her? What teenager needs that kind of guilt? But I worked all through high school thinking we needed the money. We did need the money. Your part-time job helped. It meant I didn't have to put as much on the credit cards. I felt confused and overwhelmed. Everything Catherine was showing me made sense, but it also felt wrong somehow. Catherine, Tiffany said quietly, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you ever tell Simone about the Social Security money? Even when she got older? Catherine looked down at her hands. Because I was embarrassed. Because I didn't want her to know how much she was costing me. Because I was afraid she'd feel guilty. But making her feel guilty about everyday expenses wasn't that worse? Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to make her feel guilty. I just wanted her to understand that money doesn't grow on trees. I wanted her to be responsible. By lying to her? I didn't think of it as lying. I thought of it as protecting her. I looked around the kitchen where I'd done homework for 11 years. At the refrigerator covered with my report cards and achievement certificates. At the photos of us together, smiling and happy. Catherine, I said finally, I believe that you spent the money on me. I believe that you went into debt to give me things. But I don't understand why you couldn't just tell me the truth. Because the truth was complicated. Because I was scared and overwhelmed and trying to figure it out as I went along. And the lawsuit? Was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake. I was listening to the wrong people and thinking about money instead of family. We sat there in silence for a while, looking at 15 years of receipts and bank statements spread across the table. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, Catherine said. I guess that depends on you. I looked at Tiffany, who had been unusually quiet. What do you think? I think this is complicated, she said. I think Catherine made some bad decisions, but I also think she was trying to do right by you. Even the lawsuit? No, the lawsuit was stupid. But everything else? I don't know, Simone. It looks like she really did take care of you. I thought about Maria Santos and the federal investigation. About the possibility that Catherine could face criminal charges. About 15 years of lies and 15 years of love all mixed up together. Catherine, I said, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to drop the lawsuit. Officially. Tomorrow. It's already dropped. I called my lawyer this morning. And I need you to be completely honest with the social worker when she calls you. I will. And I need time. I need time to process all of this and figure out how I feel about it. Catherine nodded. How much time? I don't know. But I'm not cutting you out of my life. You're still my family. I need space to think. As Tiffany and I drove back to campus, I felt more confused than ever. Catherine had shown me receipts and bank statements that seemed to prove she'd spent all the government money on me, plus her own money. But she'd also lied to me for 15 years and then sued me for money I didn't owe. What are you going to tell the social worker? Tiffany asked. The truth, I said. All of it. And then I guess we'll see what happens. But I had no idea what the truth even was anymore. The phone call came at 7 in the morning, 3 days after my meeting with Catherine. I was still in bed, trying to catch up on the sleep I'd been missing since this whole mess started. Miss Davis? This is Pastor Mitchell. I hope I didn't wake you. Pastor Mitchell had been Mama's pastor and mine, back when we still went to church regularly. After Mama died, Catherine and I had stopped going as often, but Pastor Mitchell had always checked on us during holidays and special occasions. No, it's okay. What's going on? I heard about what happened in court the other day. Catherine called me. I sat up in bed. She did. She's pretty torn up about this whole situation. I was wondering if you might have some time to talk with me today. Not about taking sides or anything like that. Just about where you go from here. I don't know if that's a good idea, Pastor. This is pretty complicated. The complicated ones are exactly the ones we need to pray about, child. Can you meet me for lunch? Just lunch. No pressure. Something in his voice made me say yes. Pastor Mitchell had been the one to speak at Mama's funeral. He'd been the one to pray with Catherine when she was trying to decide whether to take me in. Maybe he could help me make sense of all this. We met at the small cafe next to the church, the same place Catherine and I used to go for Sunday brunch when I was little. Pastor Mitchell looked older than I remembered, his hair completely gray now, but his smile was the same. You look good, Simone. Law school's treating you well? Most days. I sat down across from him. Pastor, I don't know what Catherine told you, but she told me she made some serious mistakes. She told me she lied to you about money for 15 years, and then made things worse by suing you. She told me she's afraid she's lost you forever. She might have. Pastor Mitchell ordered coffee for both of us. Tell me how you're feeling about all this. Angry, confused, betrayed. Catherine raised me, but she also lied to me about something huge. I don't know how to reconcile those two things. What did the lying cost you? I thought about that. Peace of mind, I guess. I worried about money constantly growing up. I worked jobs I didn't need to work. I took out student loans I might not have needed. I felt guilty for existing, for costing Catherine money. And what did the raising give you? Everything else. A home, an education, someone who cared about me. Someone who came to my school plays and helped me with homework and celebrated my achievements. So you lost some peace of mind, but you gained a childhood. I guess. But she lied to me, Pastor. For 15 years. Pastor Mitchell leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you something about Catherine that you might not know? Okay. When your mama died, Catherine was 28 years old. She had just started a new job, just gotten her own apartment. She was finally becoming independent. And suddenly she was responsible for a 7-year-old girl who had just lost her mama. I know that. Do you know that she almost said no? I stared at him. What? Catherine almost said no to taking you in. She was terrified. She didn't know anything about raising kids. She'd never even babysat regularly. She called me crying, asking if she was doing the right thing. She never told me that. Of course she didn't. What good would it have done? But I remember that conversation. She said, Pastor, what if I mess this up? What if I can't give her what she needs? And I told her the same thing I'm going to tell you now. What? Love covers a multitude of sins. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I sipped my coffee and thought about that. Pastor, she lied to me about money. Big money. Money that was legally mine. Yes, she did. And that was wrong. But why do you think she lied? I don't know. Embarrassment? Control? Greed? Or fear? Fear that if you knew the government was helping to pay for your care, you wouldn't feel like you belonged to her. Fear that you'd see yourself as a burden instead of as her daughter. Her daughter? That's how she's always talked about you. Not as her niece. Not as her ward. As her daughter. I felt tears starting. But I'm not her daughter. Aren't you? Who taught you to drive? Who helped you with homework? Who held you when you cried about boys? Who celebrated when you got into law school? Catherine did. Then what makes someone a mother, Simone? Biology or behavior? I couldn't answer that. Catherine made mistakes, Pastor Mitchell continued. Big ones. She should have told you about the money. She definitely shouldn't have sued you. But she also raised you into the woman you are today. And she did it when she didn't have to. The government was paying her to do it. The government was paying her $1,800 a month. You know how much it costs to raise a child. Catherine showed me receipts. She says she spent more than that. I'm sure she did. But that's not even my point. My point is that money wasn't why she took you in. She took you in because you were family and family takes care of family. Then why lie about the money? Pastor Mitchell was quiet for a moment. Have you asked her that directly? Really asked her and listened to the answer? Sort of. Sort of isn't good enough for something this important. Simone, you're about to graduate law school. You know how to ask hard questions and evaluate evidence. Use those skills here. What do you mean? I mean, maybe Catherine has reasons for what she did that you haven't fully understood yet. Maybe there's more to this story. After lunch, I drove around town for a while thinking about what Pastor Mitchell had said. About love covering sins, about Catherine being afraid, about me being Catherine's daughter in every way that mattered. But I also thought about 15 years of feeling guilty about money. About working jobs to help pay for things that the government was already paying for. About the stress and worry that had shaped so much of my childhood. When I got back to campus, Tiffany was waiting for me with news. Maria Santos called. She wants to meet with you tomorrow. She said the preliminary audit results are in. Already? Apparently Catherine was very cooperative. She turned over all her financial records voluntarily and answered all their questions. What did they find? She wouldn't tell me over the phone. But Simone, she sounded surprised. That night, I called Catherine for the first time since our meeting in her kitchen. Simone? Are you okay? I'm fine. Catherine, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Why did you lie to me about the money? Not the complicated reasons or the protective reasons. The real reason. Catherine was quiet for a long time. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what? Ashamed that I couldn't afford to raise you without government help. Ashamed that I had to take money to do what I thought I should do out of love. Ashamed that even with the government money, I was still struggling financially. But there's no shame in getting help. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I was 28 years old and prideful and stupid. I thought asking for help made me weak. So you never told me because you were embarrassed? I never told you because I wanted you to think I was taking care of you because I loved you, not because I was getting paid to do it. That hit me hard. Catherine, of course I knew you loved me. Did you? Or did you think I was taking care of you out of obligation? I thought about that. I don't know. Sometimes I wondered if you resented having to raise me. Never. Not once. Taking care of you was the best thing I ever did with my life. But I was afraid you wouldn't believe that if you knew about the money. That's stupid. Yes, it was. A lot of my decisions were stupid. But they came from love, Simone. Everything I did, even the stupid things, came from love. The next morning, I sat in Maria Santos's office, waiting to hear what the audit had found. My hands were shaking and I felt like I might throw up. "Miss Davis," Maria said, settling behind her desk with a thick file folder. "Thank you for coming in. I have some interesting findings to share with you." "Okay. First, I want to say that your aunt was extremely cooperative with our investigation. She provided extensive documentation and answered all our questions thoroughly. And the audit shows that she spent every penny of your survivor benefits on your care and then some. In fact, over the 11 years she received benefits on your behalf, she spent approximately $47,000 more than she received." I stared at her. "She spent more than she got?" "Significantly more. The documentation she provided shows legitimate expenses for housing, food, clothing, medical care, educational expenses, and other child-related costs that exceeded the monthly benefit amount by an average of $357 per month." "So she didn't steal from me?" "No. If anything, she subsidized your care with her own money." I felt like the world was spinning. "But what about college?" "The social worker said I might have been eligible for continued benefits." Maria's expression became more serious. "That's where things get complicated. You were eligible for continued survivor benefits through age 22 if you were enrolled in college full-time. Those benefits could have covered a significant portion of your educational expenses." "How much?" "Approximately $97,000 over 4 years. "And Catherine never told me about this?" "According to our investigation, she didn't know about the extended education benefits. When you turned 18, the regular survivor benefits stopped automatically. The educational benefits required a separate application." "Didn't anyone tell her about them?" "There should have been information included with the final benefit payment, but it appears she either didn't receive it or didn't understand it. The Social Security Administration acknowledges that communication about educational benefits isn't always clear." I sat there trying to process this information. Catherine hadn't stolen from me. She'd actually spent her own money on me. But she also hadn't known about additional money that could have paid for my college. So what are my options now? Well, since the educational benefits were available but never claimed due to lack of information, you may be able to file a late application. It's unusual, but given the circumstances, there's precedent for it. What kind of precedent? Cases where representative payees weren't properly informed about available benefits. If your application is approved, you could receive retroactive benefits for your undergraduate education. All 4 years. Potentially. Plus interest. I did quick math in my head. Nearly $100,000 plus interest. Enough to pay off my student loans and have money left over. What about Catherine? Is she in any legal trouble? No. Our investigation found no evidence of fraud or misuse of funds. In fact, it found evidence that she provided excellent care for you at considerable personal expense. I left Maria's office in a daze. Catherine hadn't stolen from me. She'd sacrificed for me. She'd gone into debt for me. And she'd done it all while feeling ashamed that she needed government help to do it. But she'd also lied to me for 15 years, and that lie had cost me educational benefits I could have claimed. The question was, what did I do with all this information now? I found Catherine in her garden, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants. She was wearing old jeans and a faded t-shirt, her hair tied back with a bandana. For a moment, she looked exactly like she had when I was little and would help her plant flowers every spring. "Catherine." She looked up, startled. "Simone. I didn't hear you come up." "I just met with the social worker." Catherine's face went pale. She sat back on her heels, a handful of weeds in her gloved hands. "And?" "She said you didn't steal from me. She said you spent more on me than the government gave you." Catherine's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. But she also said there were educational benefits available that I never got. Benefits that could have paid for college. Catherine's relief turned to confusion. What educational benefits? Survivor benefits that continue through college if you're enrolled full-time. About $97,000 worth. I never heard about any educational benefits. The social worker said information should have been sent when my regular benefits ended. Catherine stood up slowly, brushing dirt off her knees. "Simone, I swear to you, I never got any information about college benefits. When you turned 18, the payments just stopped. I assumed that was it. Did you ever call Social Security to ask about it?" "No. I was actually relieved when the payments stopped. I felt like I'd finally proven I could take care of you without help." I looked at her standing there in her garden, dirt under her fingernails, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there when I was 7. For the first time, I really saw how much raising me had aged her. "Catherine, Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? Taking me in? She stared at me like I'd asked if she regretted breathing. Regret it? Simone, raising you was the best thing I ever did. You saved my life as much as I saved yours. What do you mean? I mean, when your mama died, I was lost. I was 28 years old with no direction, no purpose. I was working a dead-end job and dating men who weren't worth my time. I probably would have wasted my whole life if you hadn't come along. How did raising me save your life? Because you gave me something to live for. Someone to be better for. Before you, I was just floating through life. After you, I had to grow up. I had to be responsible. I had to think about the future. She sat down on the garden bench, pulling off her gloves. Do you know what I was doing the night before your mama's funeral? I sat down beside her. What? I was at a bar, drinking and feeling sorry for myself. I was 28 years old and my sister was dead and I was about to become responsible for a child. I was terrified. What changed? You did. The next morning at the funeral, you were sitting in that front pew in your little black dress, trying so hard to be brave. And I looked at you and thought, this little girl needs me. She doesn't have anyone else. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. I felt tears starting. You always mattered. Not the way I mattered to you. Not the way you needed me. She turned to look at me. Simone, I know I made mistakes. I know I should have told you about the money. I know I shouldn't have sued you. But I need you to understand something. What? Every decision I made because I loved you. Even the stupid decisions. Even the wrong decisions. They all came from love. I know that now. Do you? Because sometimes I think you see me as this burden you're stuck with. This obligation you inherited when your mama died. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you came home just to visit, not because you needed something? I thought about that. She was right. Most of our contact lately had been about practical things, my grades, my job search, my student loans. I've been busy with school. I know. And I'm proud of you for that. But sometimes I feel like you can't wait to graduate and move on with your life and leave me behind. That's not. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't. But that's how it felt. And when that lawyer suggested I could sue you for the money I'd spent, it felt like finally someone was acknowledging what I'd sacrificed. But you didn't sacrifice anything you didn't want to sacrifice. Didn't I? I never got married, Simone. I never had children of my own. I never traveled or took risks or pursued dreams. I spent my 20s and 30s raising you. That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I didn't ask you to give up those things. I know you didn't. And I'm not saying I regret it. I'm saying I chose you over everything else, and sometimes I wanted that choice to be acknowledged. We sat in silence for a while, watching butterflies move among the flowers. Catherine, I said finally, I want you to know something. What? You didn't just save my life when you took me in. You gave me a good life. You made sure I had everything I needed and most of what I wanted. You supported my dreams even when they were expensive or inconvenient. You turned me into someone who could get into law school and succeed there. You did that yourself. No, I didn't. I did it with your help. With your support and encouragement and sacrifices. Catherine wiped her eyes. Thank you for saying that. I should have said it a long time ago. You were a kid. Kids aren't supposed to think about their parents' sacrifices. They're supposed to just accept love and support as their due. But I'm not a kid anymore. No, you're not. You're a grown woman about to start her career. And I couldn't be prouder of you. I looked around the garden where I'd helped plant vegetables every spring, where Catherine had taught me about responsibility and patience and the rewards of hard work. Catherine, I want to ask you something, and I want you to think before you answer. Okay. If you could do it all over again knowing what you know now, would you still take me in? She didn't hesitate. Yes. Without question. Even knowing about the stress and the debt and the sacrifices? Even knowing all of that? Even knowing I'd grow up to sue you for lying to me? I sued you, remember? And yes, even knowing that. I took a deep breath. Catherine, I need to tell you something. What? I can probably get those educational benefits. The social worker said I can file a late application. That's wonderful. That could pay off your student loans. It could pay off all my loans and have money left over. Even better. But Catherine, there's something else. If I get those benefits, it means the government will probably investigate why I didn't get them in the first place. Catherine's face went serious. What does that mean? It means they'll want to know why you didn't apply for them when I graduated high school. It means they'll question whether you were properly informed about available benefits. And it could get you in trouble. Not criminal trouble, but administrative trouble. They could decide you were negligent in your duties as my representative payee. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. What kind of trouble? I don't know exactly. Maybe fines. Maybe being barred from serving as a representative payee for anyone else in the future. Simone, file for those benefits. But if it gets you in trouble, file for them anyway. You're entitled to that money. I'm not going to let my mistakes cost you any more than they already have. Are you sure? I'm sure. If I get in trouble, I'll deal with it. But I won't be the reason you have to keep paying student loans when there's money available to help you. As I drove back to campus, I thought about Catherine in her garden, surrounded by the life she'd built for us. A life that had cost her more than I'd ever realized. I also thought about the educational benefits sitting there waiting for me to claim them. Money that could change my financial future, but might cost Catherine more than she'd already paid. For the first time since this whole mess started, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The Social Security Administration office was located in a sterile government building downtown, all gray concrete and fluorescent lights. I sat in the waiting room with a folder full of paperwork, watching people navigate the complicated bureaucracy of government benefits. When my number was finally called, I followed a tired-looking woman named Susan to a small cubicle surrounded by filing cabinets and stacks of paper. "Miss Davis," she said, settling behind her desk. "I understand you want to file a late application for educational survivor benefits." "Yes, ma'am." "These benefits should have been applied for when you graduated high school in 2017. Can you explain why they weren't?" I had practiced this conversation in my head dozens of times. My guardian wasn't informed about them. She didn't know they existed. Susan frowned. "Information about educational benefits should have been included with the final payment notice when your regular survivor benefits ended." She says she never received that information. Susan typed something into her computer. "Let me check our records." She was quiet for several minutes, scrolling through screens. "I see here that a final payment notice was sent to Catherine Harrison in June 2017. What did it say?" "It notified her that your regular survivor benefits were ending, and it included a pamphlet about educational benefits for college students." My heart sank. So she did receive information about the educational benefits? According to our records, yes. I felt sick. Had Catherine lied to me again? Had she known about the educational benefits and just not told me? "However," Susan continued, "I also see several notes in your file." "What kind of notes?" "It appears Mrs. Harrison called our office multiple times over the years with questions about your benefits. And our records show she was often given incomplete or incorrect information." "What do you mean?" "For example, in 2015 she called to ask about your benefits continuing through high school graduation. The representative she spoke with told her that benefits automatically end at age 18, period. No mention of educational benefits. So she was given wrong information?" "It appears so. And there are other examples. In 2014 she called to report a change in your address when you moved within the same school district. The representative told her no action was needed, but actually, we should have updated our records to ensure proper mailing of future notices." Susan continued scrolling through the computer records. "Miss Davis, it appears your guardian made a good faith effort to understand your benefits and comply with regulations, but she was often given inadequate guidance by our staff. What does that mean for my application?" "It means you have grounds for a late application based on administrative error. The educational benefits pamphlet that was supposedly sent to your final address may never have reached Mrs. Harrison due to the address issue that wasn't properly resolved. So I can get the benefits? I'll need to review your college transcripts and financial aid records, but based on what I'm seeing here, yes, you should be eligible for retroactive educational benefits." "How much?" Susan did some calculations on her computer. For 4 years of full-time undergraduate study, you'd be eligible for approximately $94,000 plus interest. The number was even bigger than I'd expected. "And Catherine? I mean Mrs. Harrison, would she be in trouble for not applying for these benefits originally? Based on these records? No. It appears she wasn't properly informed about the benefits due to errors on our end. I left the Social Security office with paperwork to complete and a timeline for receiving my benefits. I also left with a better understanding of what had really happened 15 years ago. Catherine hadn't lied about the educational benefits. She really hadn't known about them. And based on the Social Security Administration's own records, that wasn't her fault. But I still had one more thing I needed to do. I drove to downtown and found a parking spot near the courthouse. Attorney David Chen's office was on the third floor of a glass building that screamed expensive legal services. "Miss Davis," he said when his secretary showed me into his office. "I wasn't expecting to see you. I wanted to talk to you about Catherine's lawsuit against me." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "As I understand it, that lawsuit has been dropped." "It has. But I want to understand how it got started in the first place." David Chen was a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never done manual labor in his life. His office was decorated with law school diplomas and awards from various legal organizations. "Miss Davis, I'm not sure it's appropriate for me to discuss my former client's case with you. Catherine gave me permission to talk to you. She wants me to understand what happened." He pulled out a file folder. "Very well. Mrs. Harrison came to me last month with concerns about recovering expenses she'd incurred while raising you." "What kind of concerns?" "She said she'd gone into significant debt providing for your care, and she wanted to know if she had any legal recourse for recovering those expenses." "And you told her she could sue me?" "I told her that in some circumstances, adult children can be held financially responsible for their care if they have the means to pay. But I'm not her child. I'm her niece. And I don't have any means to pay." "Those are valid points that I should have explored more thoroughly." "Should have." David Chen looked uncomfortable. "Miss Davis, I'll be honest with you. Mrs. Harrison's case was not strong. I should have advised her against pursuing litigation." "Then why didn't you?" "Because she was desperate. She was facing significant financial pressure, and she needed legal options. I thought perhaps you might be willing to work out some kind of payment arrangement." "Based on what?" "I'm a student with no income. I was hoping you might have family resources available to help." I stared at him. "You encouraged Catherine to sue me hoping my family would pay money to make the lawsuit go away?" "I encouraged Mrs. Harrison to explore all available options for addressing her financial difficulties." "By suing someone who couldn't afford to pay?" "Miss Davis, litigation is often about more than just collecting money. Sometimes it's about acknowledgement, about validation of sacrifices made." "So you encouraged Catherine to sue me for psychological reasons?" "I encouraged her to pursue legal remedies for legitimate grievances." I sat back in my chair. "Mr. Chin, did you know about the Social Security survivor benefits Catherine received for my care?" His face changed. "What Social Security benefits?" "The $280,000 in government money she received over 11 years specifically designated for my care." No. Mrs. Harrison never mentioned any government benefits. "She never told you that she received over $2,000 a month in federal money for taking care of me?" "No. She told me she'd raised you at her own expense with no financial assistance." "And you didn't think to ask about government benefits for orphan children?" David Chen was starting to look very uncomfortable. "Miss Davis, I relied on my client to provide complete information about her financial situation." "But you're a lawyer. Shouldn't you have known that survivor benefits exist? Shouldn't you have asked about them?" "In retrospect, yes, I should have made more thorough inquiries." "Mr. Chen, if you had known about the Social Security benefits, would you have advised Catherine to sue me?" "No. Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because you can't sue someone for expenses that were already covered by government benefits designated for those same expenses. That would be fraudulent." I stood up. "Mr. Chin, because of your advice, Catherine sued me for $40,000 for expenses that were already paid for by the federal government. That lawsuit caused enormous stress for both of us and damaged our relationship. It also led to a federal investigation of Catherine's finances. Miss Davis, I sincerely apologize. If I had known about the government benefits." "You should have known. You should have asked. And you should have given Catherine better advice." "You're absolutely right. I want you to do something for me." "What?" "I want you to send Catherine a letter explaining that you gave her bad legal advice based on incomplete information. I want you to acknowledge that her lawsuit had no merit and should never have been filed." "Miss Davis, such a letter could expose me to malpractice liability." "Yes, it could. Just like your bad advice exposed Catherine to federal investigation and nearly destroyed our family." David Chin was quiet for a long moment. "I'll draft the letter." "Thank you." As I left his office, I felt like I'd finally gotten some closure. Catherine's lawsuit hadn't been entirely her idea. She'd been encouraged by a lawyer who should have known better and should have asked better questions. But I still had one more conversation to have. The most important one. That evening, I called Catherine and asked her to meet me at Grandma Rosie's house. It was time to put this whole mess behind us. Grandma Rosie's house smelled like Sunday dinner even though it was Tuesday night. She'd made fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, and cornbread, all my favorite foods from childhood. The dining room table was set with her good china, the kind she usually saved for holidays. "You girls need to eat while you talk," she said, bustling around the kitchen. "Food helps people think better." Catherine sat across from me at the table where I'd done homework so many afternoons after school. She looked nervous, picking at her chicken and avoiding eye contact. "Catherine," I said, "I have some things to tell you." "Okay." "First, I filed for the educational survivor benefits. I should get about $94,000 plus interest." Catherine smiled for the first time in weeks. "That's wonderful. That'll pay off your student loans and give you a good start after graduation." "Yes, it will." "And Catherine? You're not in any trouble with Social Security. They admitted they gave you incomplete information over the years, including about the educational benefits." Her relief was visible. "Thank God. I also went to see your lawyer." Catherine's face darkened. "What for?" "To find out why he encouraged you to sue me." "Catherine, did you tell him about the Social Security money?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I was embarrassed about it, and because I didn't think it mattered. I thought the lawsuit was about the extra money I spent, not the government money." "Catherine, the government money was supposed to cover my care. You can't sue someone for expenses that were already paid for by government benefits." "I didn't know that." "Your lawyer should have known that. He should have asked about government benefits. If he had, he would have told you the lawsuit was frivolous." Catherine put down her fork. "Are you saying I was manipulated?" "I'm saying you were given very bad legal advice. And I'm saying you're not the only one who made mistakes here." Grandma Rosie sat down at the table with us. "So what happens now?" I looked at Catherine, then at Grandma. "Now we figure out how to be a family again." "Are we still a family?" Catherine asked quietly. "Of course we are. Catherine, you raised me for 11 years. You sacrificed for me. You loved me. You made mistakes, but you loved me. That doesn't just disappear because you lied about money. But you don't trust me anymore. I don't trust you the same way I did before. But I still love you. And I still think of you as my mother in every way that matters." Catherine started crying. "I was so scared I'd lost you forever." "You can't lose me, Catherine. I'm stuck with you. You made sure of that by raising me right. Even after everything I did? Especially after everything you did. The good and the bad. It all made me who I am." We talked for another hour about the money and the lies and the lawsuit. But mostly we talked about the future. "I have a job offer in Atlanta," I told them. "A good law firm that wants me to start after I pass the bar exam." "That's wonderful," Catherine said, but I could hear the sadness in her voice. "It's a 2-hour drive from here. I could come home every weekend if I wanted to." "You don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to, but I want to. I want to be part of your life, Catherine. I want you to be part of mine." "Really? Really? But I have some conditions." "What conditions?" "No more lies. Ever. About anything. Even small things. Even things you think might hurt my feelings." "I promise." "And no more lawsuits." Catherine laughed through her tears. "Definitely no more lawsuits. And I want you to get some financial counseling. You're terrible with money and you need help." "That's fair." "And I want you to let me help you pay off your credit card debt." "Simone, no. I'm not taking money from you. Catherine, you went into debt raising me. Now I have money because of government benefits I was entitled to as a child. Let me help. I can handle my own debt." "With what money?" "You're still making payments on credit cards you maxed out buying me things 15 years ago." Grandma Rosie cleared her throat. "Catherine, let the girl help you. Pride is what got you into this mess in the first place." Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "How much debt are we talking about?" "About $35,000 in credit card debt, right? Plus the car loan." "How did you know?" "I saw your statements when you were showing me your receipts. Catherine, with my educational benefits, I can pay off your debt and still have money left over for myself." "I can't let you do that." "Why not? You spent 15 years taking care of me. Now it's my turn to take care of you. But that money is for your future." "My future includes you, Catherine. It includes making sure you're financially stable and not stressed about money all the time." Catherine looked at Grandma Rosie. "What do you think?" "I think family takes care of family," Grandma said. "I think Simone wants to help because she loves you. And I think you should let her." "Okay," Catherine said finally. "But I pay you back." "No. This isn't a loan. This is me saying thank you for 15 years of sacrifice." We sat around Grandma Rosie's table until almost midnight, talking and laughing and crying. For the first time in weeks I felt like I was home. As we were getting ready to leave, Grandma pulled me aside. "You did good tonight, baby." "Did I?" "You chose healing over anger. You chose family over grudges. Your mama would be proud." "Think so?" "I know so. She raised you to be forgiving and loving. Catherine raised you to be strong and determined. Between the two of them, they made you into someone who can handle anything life throws at you. Even family drama? Especially family drama." 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment in Atlanta, talking to Catherine on the phone like I did every Sunday evening. The educational benefits had come through $97,000 total. I'd used some of it to pay off my student loans, some to pay off Catherine's credit card debt, and the rest was in savings for my future. "How's work?" Catherine asked. "Good. Busy but good." "How's your financial counseling class?" "Helpful." "Did you know that credit cards have different interest rates?" "Catherine, you're 39 years old. How did you not know that?" "I was never good with money. You know that." "Are you learning?" "I'm trying." "The counselor says I have impulse control issues when it comes to spending." "Do you think she's right?" "Probably. But I'm working on it." "Good. Because I'm not bailing you out again." "I know. And I appreciate what you did. I know I never thanked you properly." "You don't need to thank me. We're family." "Yes, we are." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony looking out at the Atlanta skyline and thinking about the year that had changed everything. I'd learned that the people we love aren't perfect. I'd learned that family is complicated and messy and sometimes painful. I'd learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean choosing love over anger. Most importantly, I'd learned that family isn't just about blood or obligation. It's about the people who show up for you, day after day, year after year, even when they make mistakes. Catherine had shown up for me for 15 years. She'd made mistakes, big ones, but she'd also loved me and sacrificed for me and helped shape me into the woman I'd become. And now it was my turn to show up for her. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Proud of you, baby girl. Your mama would be proud too." I smiled and texted back, "Love you too, Mom." Because that's what she was. Not my biological mother, but my mother in every way that mattered. The woman who'd raised me, loved me, and taught me that family isn't perfect, but it's still worth fighting for. And sometimes, when you fight for family, you win more than just the battle. You win the kind of love that lasts a lifetime. 3 months after I graduated law school and passed the bar exam, I got a letter from the Social Security Administration. They were implementing new procedures to ensure that representative payees were properly informed about all available benefits. They were also requiring better training for their phone representatives to ensure consistent and accurate information. I like to think that our case helped make things better for other families facing similar situations. That some other child won't lose out on educational benefits because of administrative errors or miscommunication. But mostly, I'm grateful that our story had a happy ending. Catherine and I are closer now than we ever were before. We talk more honestly, love more intentionally, and appreciate each other more deeply. We learned that truth, even painful truth, is the foundation of real relationship. We learned that forgiveness is a choice that has to be made over and over again. And we learned that love really can cover a multitude of sins not by ignoring them, but by healing them. 2 years later, Catherine came to my law school graduation, my real one, where I walked across the stage in cap and gown. She cried and cheered and embarrassed me in the best possible way. Afterwards, she gave me a card. Inside she'd written, "Thank you for choosing love. Thank you for choosing family. Thank you for choosing me even when I didn't deserve it. Love, Mom." I kept that card in my wallet for years. It reminded me that the best families aren't the ones that never have problems. They're the ones that work through their problems together. They're the ones that choose love again and again even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.